I don't know that most people realize HEX is trying to play out what actually works for price appreciation. And I think when many people that may consider themselves more knowledgeable than the great majority of people often look at things to decide to invest in them or not. I think there's two broad categories: venture vesting and value vesting. And there's relatively accepted metrics for the intelligentsia that they use to decide to invest or not. And there's this classic book, for example, of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin Standard, talking about all the potentially fundamental reasons why, starting from base assumptions and first principles and all these things like that, why Bitcoin is such a good store of value. And I think there is value in looking at what you invest with from first principles. I think someone should have a thesis, try their very best to have an actual understanding of what they're investing in and why. But I think sometimes there's a detachment and I think a massive amount of people potentially fall into this trap of looking at the thing itself rather than everything, which doesn't make any sense. But should I invest in this company? Well, this company owns this many assets. It's expected to have this much revenue. And so based on the current going rate, blah, 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 this company is worth this much money. Is it over that or under that? Well, then that helps me decide with relative confidence if this is a good investment or not. Great. Bitcoin, like I said, has, it does this well, it does this well, it does this well, and then there's this giant leap. So the price is worth this. And the same thing with that one company. So then the price is worth this because of all these fundamentals. And then, of course, on the other side, you have the technicals, where people are drawing lines on charts, looking at volume, looking at moving averages, and all these fancy fun things, Fibonacci's and all this potentially useful and very, there's something to them. All of those things, there's something to them. And then there's something else, which is history. Like what has actually happened? You can look at the fundamentals. This company owns this, has this revenue. But that is not what makes the price. There's more than that. There's emotions, for example, of all the individuals, the collective people investing in something, and the money they have and the money they want to put in. And, like many things, that price is made up of many individual decisions. And just because someone feels the price, because of these fundamentals, should be worth something, doesn't mean it is, because the price isn't that. You can talk all day about how the price should be that, but if it's not, it's not. And I've, for example, looked at cryptocurrency, looked at fundamentals, and been like, wow, this cryptocurrency is the exception, quite a bit more decentralized, which is supposed to be such a great core value of cryptocurrency. And so, man, you must, if you're investing then, since you're trying to buy a decentralized currency, since you're buying crypto is not a big part of what it's about, well, that should be a huge value, right? In the fundamentals, well, it's actually decentralized, so then that means it's a good investment. Well, not necessarily. I've watched a number of these from a fundamental perspective do pretty poorly and be forgotten. And that's like where I think learning from history, what actually happened? What actually caused the price to go up? Look at Dogecoin. Tell me, why has the price acted in the way that it has? What are the fundamentals of Dogecoin that are so great that have led to a price as high as it is today? How come it has not gone to zero when Decred and some of these other more serious tokens have not performed as well? No, Elon Musk isn't talking about Decred as a random example. That's what I think is so interesting about HEX, is because to me, I mean, in some sense, I feel like Richard Hart has mentioned this himself, but there's the Dunning-Kruger effect, the common recognized trait of, generally speaking, less intelligent people overrate their intelligence. They would, if you ask them, here's average, how much above or below average do you consider your intelligence? They tend to overrate their intelligence. And the intelligent people may still rate themselves intelligent, but they tend to understate their intelligence to the actual reality, to the way this famous study was done by Dunning and Kruger back in the day. Intelligent people tend to underestimate their own intelligence, and less intelligent people tend to overrate their intelligence, and it's kind of just a fascinating thing for a number of reasons. But there's also another meme of sorts that goes around where you have this idiot. I think it's an awesome thing. You have almost what looks like the IQ curve, where you have the idiot over here, you have the average IQ guy up at the top, because everyone's, the majority are average on this good old bell curve, and over here you got the intelligent guy, and you have this weird phenomenon where the dumb guy and the IQ 160 guy are saying the same thing, and everyone in the middle is saying, this can't be the case because of blah blah blah. I like that meme, and I see there's some truth in that meme all over the place. I think there's so many things that appeal oftentimes, I think, for the wrong reason. It's mostly intuition and I want to say archetypes, but these like inbuilt feelings of people that they sometimes are going after something without the understanding of the fundamental reasoning behind it, and without necessarily seeing truth in a way they can articulate well. But it doesn't mean they're wrong. I don't know if I should say examples because I'm going to get judged, but I felt Trump was sometimes perceived this way, where you had the low IQ people just, Trump's the best guy ever. And then you had these high IQ people that were like, Trump's the best guy ever. And you had everyone in the middle like, Trump's an idiot. How could you possibly ever say anything positive about Trump? I see conservatives as a very similar thing, where there's these conservative feelings. And I'm getting off topic. I'm probably going to, if people don't understand what I'm saying, this is going to work against me to say it. So maybe I shouldn't say that. But I see conservatives a similar way. You have all these socialists saying, like, don't you care about people? And then you have the low IQ people kind of just, who cares? You get what you make. And I think it's, it's, if you're poor, it's because you didn't work hard enough, and which to me is a low IQ thing. But then you have this higher IQ conservative, which I'm not. Conservative needs to be defined and all this stuff, but you have this higher IQ. It's like, well, we want conservatism because we care for people. And you go too far the other direction towards socialism, and you start funding things and incentivizing things that in the long run hurt more people, and whatever. There's a more complicated, potentially, argument to some of these things. And like I said, I'm not defining conservatism, and maybe that's not the best example, but I see that pattern myself. Honestly, I just see it, of the low IQ and the high IQ often agreeing. And anyway, coming back to HEX. HEX to me is a reaction to an observation of crypto. And it's a, well, this has happened, things have happened in the past. The price has actually gone up. I'm getting a text and it's distracting me. In the past, Bitcoin's the greatest thing ever. Well, the price didn't go up when you thought it would go up, and it went down when you didn't think it could go down. And all these projects that you thought were great didn't do so hot. All these projects you thought were crap went up massively in price. And I think HEX is taking that observation of crypto history basically into account and trying to make a store of value coin off of those things. And it's basically, I'm not giving specifics, and I'm really talking broadly, but I see that happening in HEX, and I see people looking at fundamentals and things like, this isn't going to work. This isn't decentralized. The OA account, by the way, from my research, the OA account owns more than I think. I want to do more research, but I think the OA account holds much more than 50% of HEX. And so it's not decentralized. If you anyway, and I think, but at the same time, I think Richard Hart is right. If you care about value, that fundamental that you think is so valuable, it's decentralized. It's actually not what puts the price high. If price is the value that you have, I think he's right. And that is a, but at the same time, he does other things. Like, he has, the code is written, it is going to play out the way it's going to play out, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. So he is, I think, very much with HEX, tried to learn from his experience, take the good, remove the bad, but it's not in the way that the majority of people easily recognize. I think it's like, it really does appeal to the highly intelligent, whatever that means, and the low intelligent. Like, the low intelligent just look at it like, oh, look, a great return on investment. I don't care what the fundamentals are. I just want a return on money. The middle IQ people are like, what? This looks like a scam. Average returns of, a little bit under 40% in HEX. Well, it's in HEX anyway. Who cares? Where does it get its value from? Try to answer all these questions, which are potentially very good questions. Sounds scammy. It went up that much. That's suspicious in itself. Look at the site. Like, talking all about this price stuff, that can't possibly be, this can't possibly be a good actual long-term time-withstanding investment. But then at the same time, you look at the community and you're like, holy shnikes, I've never seen a community like HEX has. And you recognize things like, wait, not only is this community very vocal, there's possibly a reason why they're so vocal. I mean, one of the reasons might be because the community has locked up money, essentially, their value, for 15 years, and they have a very big incentive to naturally not wait on the work of others, but take responsibility themselves and make sure the price goes up. And at the same time, they can do it truly believing that this is actually going to be good for the people that they get in. Because it's not just this fancy, flashy thing that draws in the low IQ stuff. It actually has some very interesting fundamentals behind it. And those people that ask good questions and are able to look past the flashy stuff that usually, as a heuristic, does mean it's a scam, but look back to the meaning. Why does that usually mean it's a scam? Like, does that apply in this case? I think if they dig deep enough, if they're able to be transparent enough with themselves. And I think a lot of people too, potentially an honest reaction to HEXs. I say this similar to what I think Eric Wall said in his interview, and it was a long time ago, but this is kind of my honest interpretation. It's like, wow, kind of like, what an interesting thing. I don't know what's going to happen. I wish you luck. It's just it was, to me, an honest take. It was there's a clip in there where he is quoted for saying, it sounds like the dumbest thing he's ever heard. That was, I think, partway through, and by the end, that's not how he ended the conversation. It was kind of like he didn't know what to say about it, which is, I cannot blame him for. That is, to me, a very honest take. Flippant, emotional response is when I would have an issue, but HEX is original enough to have a hard time, I think, for most people that are truly looking at something. And if they start digging in, I think the honest response for many would be, wow, I haven't seen this happen before. This might work. It might totally blow up on itself. And I have my own glad to say, I'm not glad but I have two issues with HEX. One is the simple reality: HEX is not decentralized. It has many good attributes with it, but it is not decentralized. The OA account owns a great majority of HEX. Not currently concerned about that, because I honestly have relatively high trust of the OA account. I think it's not stupid. So even if it tries to do the right thing, sometimes people mess things up because they don't know what is actually useful. I think it's actually intelligent enough when it tries to do the right thing, it actually will be useful. And then on the other side, my concern with HEX is the inflation rate, which is 3.69%. But as I said, the OA account owns such a massive majority of tokens. It effectively, which goes to the 10% or a little bit less than that of stakers, is the actual supply. If you assume OA is not the OA account is not going to sell, the actual percentage of what's really on the market, the inflation rate is much higher than 3.69, way higher. And yes, when you stake, it burns your coins and it takes the supply away, absolutely. But those stakes in and they come back. When they come back with interest, and if it's a 15-year stake, it comes in with a bunch of interest. Potentially something like, it's going to be, roughly an average of 20% a year, compounded for 15 years. That's massive. And it's all great and fun and dandy as long as adoption is greater than that. And that is where I'm at with HEX. I don't know. I almost talked myself out of that issue, and I've talked myself back in. I am concerned about that issue. I'm still invested in HEX. I'm not ready to sell or anything like that because of it, but part of being truthful and honest and really looking at things is being truthful and honest and really looking at things. And if I have a question or I have a concern, I'm very much going to be aware of it. I have no problem being honest with people about these are my simple concerns. That was a long rambling. I think I'm going to end it there. Thoughts on any of this, would love to hear. Like hearing thoughts. I like engagement. But a lot of this is me talking to myself. And if it's interesting to you, you can listen in and hear some other guy's thoughts on stuff. And yeah, I'm really like, you got to bear with me, because that's really what these are. And I'm not like putting a ton of effort into necessarily being understood well. This really is me sharing my thoughts to myself, and my thoughts can change any day. These are ad-lib thoughts. These are just in the moment what is coming out of my head you guys get to view that, you know, and it's as truthful as my brain processes whatever is up here into words, you know, all that intuition and you know, the ability to analytically form thoughts and statements and put them through the part of my brain that processes words and have them come out with the vocabulary that I have. That's what you get. So yeah, but responses to the thoughts I've had in the past have been useful. Anyway.